Have you ever woken up one day and realized your whole life was built around a lie? That was me, last Christmas. I was standing in my sister's living room surrounded by shredded wrapping paper, squealing kids, and the scent of honey ham when my phone buzzed. A fraud alert. My backup credit card, one I hadn't touched in months, was hit with a charge for over $13,000. I thought it had to be a mistake. I actually laughed. But when I opened the app, I saw the breakdown. All the toys, tech, and treats piled under the tree, paid with my card. No one said a word, not a warning, not a thank you, just silence. Until my cousin Noah shrugged and said, "Well, we voted. You don't have kids, it just made sense." That sentence snapped something in me. Not because they used my money, but because they felt entitled to it, like my lack of a husband or children automatically made me the family wallet. I wasn't even surprised, not really. Just numb. Because the truth is, this wasn't about one Christmas. This was about years, no decades, of being the reliable one, the fixer, the backup plan. I thought I was helping out of love. Turns out I was just a convenience. The more I gave, the less I mattered, and suddenly I could see it all clearly. So, what do you do when your entire family sees you as nothing but a resource? When generosity turns into expectation and boundaries dissolve into obligation? It started small. $20 here, a quick loan there. Rent help for a cousin who was between jobs. A co-signed car loan for my sister because her credit was trash. At first, it felt good to be able to help. I was proud of where I'd gotten in life. Stable job, no kids, a little money to spare. But slowly, it stopped being about emergencies and started being about expectations. My phone would ring, and before anyone even said hello, I knew they wanted something. It was always phrased like a favor. Just until next month. We'll pay you back as soon as the refund hits. But no one ever did. They stopped pretending. After a while. My mom once called to ask me to cover my uncle's dental surgery, without even checking if I was okay with it. She just gave the receptionist my card number and told me after the fact. I'd become a silent bank account. They even had a little phrase for it. "Erica, I'll handle it." Like I was some family-sponsored fund. There were big things too. Thousands for Noah's business idea that flopped within 6 months. Kendra's third attempt at finishing community college. My dad's medical bills, which I didn't mind at first, until he started asking for extras on top, like new glasses, gas money, or even a little help at the casino. I started noticing how I was always invited to events where I'd be expected to pay. And if I declined, suddenly I was cold, ungrateful, changed. That one stung, because I hadn't changed. I just finally started seeing it for what it was. Still, I told myself it was just how families worked, that one day they'd appreciate it, that if I gave enough, loved hard enough, they'd see me. Turns out they saw me all along, just not the way I hoped. It wasn't the money that finally broke me. It was something way smaller, a stuffed animal. We were cleaning up after Christmas dinner and I saw Ava, Noah's wife, quietly packing toys into their car. I noticed a little plush dinosaur clutched in her hand. "Chomper," she said, half smiling. "He's Noah Jr.'s favorite. Says it reminds him of you." I raised an eyebrow. "Why me?" She paused. "Because you always save the day." Something about that moment stayed with me. Not the compliment, but the way she said it. Soft, apologetic, like she knew it wasn't a compliment at all. I started remembering all the times they joked about me being the rich aunt, the walking ATM, the single with savings. How every story about me came with a punchline about how I had nothing better to do with my money. It was never about me being generous. It was about how useful I was. And then I remembered the tone. That fake concerned, sugar-dipped tone my mom used. "We just worry about you, Erica, all alone in that apartment. Don't you want something to show for your life?" As if the only thing that mattered was whether I had a husband or a baby to prove I wasn't wasting oxygen. I used to feel guilty about not having a family. But that night, something flipped. I saw how they used that guilt to keep me in line. How every conversation was laced with judgment, every favor wrapped in expectation. That's when I realized I wasn't their loved one. I was their lifeline, their safety net, their silent sponsor. They didn't ask. They expected. And I let them. thinking it was love. But love doesn't come with strings, and certainly not with itemized receipts. That quiet little stuffed dinosaur, Chomper, was the first time I saw the truth reflected back at me. Not as a joke, not as guilty, just clarity. The next morning, I didn't hesitate. I opened my laptop, logged into every account I had, and started pulling receipts. I disputed the charges on my backup card first, the big one, over 13 grand, then the others. There were way more than I realized. Streaming services I didn't use, grocery deliveries for addresses that weren't mine, even a plane ticket booked in my name to fly my sister's kid to some out-of-state tournament. My fingers shook, but not from fear, from focus. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. After I filed the chargebacks, I blocked every saved device on my accounts, froze the old cards, changed passwords, enabled two-factor on everything. Then I wrote the email. It was short, direct, and probably the most powerful thing I've ever sent. I told them that from this point forward, I would no longer be providing any financial assistance. No more loans, no more emergencies, no more just this once. I let them know I'd contacted the banks, that any future unauthorized use would be reported as fraud. The silence after I hit send was deafening. Hours went by. Then texts started rolling in. Some pretending confusion, others are dripping with guilt. You could have just talked to us. This isn't like you. You're breaking the family. I didn't reply to any of them. I'd already said everything I needed to. I think part of them didn't believe I'd actually follow through, that I'd cave like always. But I didn't. Because this time I wasn't setting a boundary. I was building a wall. One they couldn't scale with tears or guilt trips or half-hearted apologies. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what they'd say. I was ready for whatever came next, because I wasn't asking for peace anymore. I was claiming it. 3 days later, they showed up. Not all of them, just the loudest ones. My dad, my mom, and Kendra. I saw them through the peephole, standing on my porch like they were about to stage an intervention. I almost didn't open the door, but some part of me needed to hear what they'd say when they had to look me in the eye. So I opened it. And right away, the guilt parade started. My dad went first, puffed up like a rooster. You embarrassed us, Erica. This whole stunt with the bank, you made us look like criminals. My mom chimed in, all shaky voice and wrung hands. You could have just come to us, baby. We're family. And then Kendra, cold as ever, looked me dead in the face and said, You always think you're better than us. Just because you have a job and no kids doesn't mean you can judge the rest of us. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just stood there, listening, letting it all hit. Because what they were really saying wasn't about the money. It was about control. They were angry that I took mine back, that I finally stopped playing the part they wrote for me. And I think what scared them most wasn't losing the cash. It was losing the version of me who said yes to everything. Kendra tried to follow me as I turned to walk away, still ranting about how I owed them. I stopped in the doorway and looked at all three of them, my own family, and said the only thing I felt in my bones. I'm done with all of you. Then I closed the door, and for the first time, I felt it click. The weight was off. The script was over. And I wasn't in their story anymore. The silence after that day was the loudest piece I've ever felt. No calls asking for money, no passive-aggressive group texts, no guilt trips layered in fake concern. Just quiet, still, freeing. It was like my life had finally exhaled. I started sleeping through the night. I stopped checking my phone like it was a bomb about to go off. And for once, I wasn't living in reaction to someone else's needs. The quiet wasn't lonely, it was clean. I started noticing the small joys I'd been missing. Drinking coffee without a crisis in the background, reading a book all the way through, taking long walks just because the sky looked nice. The constant weight that had lived on my chest for years just lifted. I didn't even realize how much of myself I'd given away until I stopped giving it. The tension in my shoulders was gone. The fog in my head cleared. About a month later, I did something big. I moved to Seattle. I didn't tell anyone. I packed up my apartment, hired a moving service, and bought a one-way ticket. I chose a place with big windows and no memories. That first morning in my new home, I sat on the balcony with a blanket and a cup of tea, looking at the skyline, and felt something I hadn't in over a decade. Peace. Not the kind that comes when everyone else is happy. The kind that comes when you finally put yourself first. The kind you fight for. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I didn't need approval. I was done playing the role they'd cast me in. Seattle wasn't just a new city. It was a reset, a space where I didn't have to be the fixer, the provider, the responsible one. I could just be me, and that was more than enough. Just when I thought it was over, they found new ways to try and pull me back in. It started with fake concern. Emails from my mom saying things like, "Just checking on you, sweetie. Hope Seattle isn't too lonely." Then came the updates. Carefully phrased messages about bills piling up, kids needing things, Noah really turning things around. I didn't respond. I didn't even open half of them. But one slipped through that made my stomach turn. Noah sent me a long, dramatic message about how he'd changed. Said he was in therapy, regretted how he treated me, and wanted a fresh start. For a split second, I almost softened. Until a week later, my bank flagged an attempted login. Someone had tried to access my account from a known device. Guess whose old phone ID it was? Yep, Noah. The same guy who said he was working on himself. That was the moment I knew. They weren't trying to rebuild trust. They were trying to find a new way in. After that, I cut the last few threads, blocked emails, changed my number, set up alerts in case anyone else got creative. It was painful in a whole different way. Not dramatic, not explosive, just sad. Because it confirmed what I'd feared all along. For some of them, this was never about love. It was about access. And they didn't miss me. They missed the pipeline. You want to believe people will eventually get it, that they'll see the hurt they caused and try to be better. But some people don't want to be better. They just want to regain control. And once I saw that, I stopped waiting for closure. I wasn't interested in fixing anything. I was interested in healing. And that meant letting go, for real this time. No explanations, no guilt, just gone. I thought cutting them off would be the end of the story, but it turns out it was the start of something else, something bigger. A few months after the dust settled, I got a message from Ava, short, simple. "You were right all along." That was it. But those 5 words hit harder than any apology ever could. She told me later how watching me walk away gave her the courage to rethink her own situation. Turns out, Noah's behavior wasn't limited to just financial manipulation. He'd been controlling her life in all the same quiet, suffocating ways. Always just beneath the surface. Always dressed up as protection. He'd manage the money, the schedule, even how she dressed. She said seeing me leave, no drama, no begging, just leave, made her realize she could too. And she did. She moved. Out, filed for separation, and started rebuilding her life. Said it was hard, terrifying even, but she kept going. She got a job at a bookstore, started saving, started dreaming again. And the wildest part? She started reconnecting with parts of herself she thought she'd lost. Painting again. Taking her kid to the park without checking in with anyone. Finding her own rhythm. And that's when I realized what I did wasn't just about reclaiming my life. It created space for others to do the same. I didn't know Ava was watching. I didn't know I was giving anyone permission. But sometimes, just living your truth is enough to shake something loose in someone else. And as much as I grieved the loss of family, this new connection with her felt real. Not based on guilt or obligation, just honesty, respect, a kind of quiet solidarity. Sometimes you walk away and people follow, not to drag you back, but to walk toward something better too. I used to think love meant always saying yes. That being good meant being available. That if I just gave a little more, bent a little further, stayed a little quieter, I'd finally earn the kind of love that felt unconditional. But therapy helped me see something different, something I wish I'd known sooner. I wasn't generous. I was trained. Trained to believe that worth came from sacrifice. That the more I gave, the more valuable I became. Those boundaries were selfish. It started so early I didn't even notice it happening. Little moments, subtle guilt, conditional praise, and over time that became my blueprint for love. If I wasn't giving, I wasn't enough. But here's what I know now. Real love doesn't drain you. It doesn't ask you to bleed just to keep the peace. It doesn't make you feel small so others can feel secure. Real love sees you, holds space for you, wants you to be whole, not useful. That kind of love starts with yourself. And once I gave myself permission to walk away from the people who couldn't give that, everything changed. It's not perfect. Some days I still wonder if I overreacted, if maybe I could have handled it differently. But then I remember what it felt like to live on edge, waiting for the next favor to be asked. And I remember how light it feels now, how quiet, how steady. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm just done. Done chasing love that hurts. Done proving myself to people who were never really looking. I'm building something better now, with peace as the foundation. And for the first time in my life, I finally believe this. I don't owe anyone my destruction to prove I'm worthy of care, and I never did.